Okay, welcome back. If you're hearing my voice right now, you're still sticking with me, so I'm happy to hear that. We're now going to finish up with the last part of this boring data dump that I have to give you, and I'm going to give you some suffixes. I'm going to move through this list probably a little bit quicker than prefixes. It's a very long list. You're going to need to know all of these in order to get your definitions down. I'll point out to you the most commonly used ones and the most important ones. I'm hoping to get all of it done in this segment, but there may be a few additional ones in another segment after that. So I want to cover this information. As I said, it's going to be a little bit quicker than we covered the prefixes because there's a lot of them, and I want to make sure I get all the information to you that you need regarding these. Okay, now I mentioned earlier we were going to have 14 suffixes that all have the same definition, meaning pertaining to. So these are your 14 adjective suffixes that mean pertaining to. I want you to focus only on that list of suffixes on the left-hand column. I'm going to give you the suffix. There's an example of how it's used, and it's giving you the definition of how it modified that word for its definition. For your purposes, you only need to know that list on the far left. There's going to be 14 of them. Here's the first 7. Know that list and know that they all mean pertaining to. 14 words, one definition. Okay? So, ac is a pertaining to suffix. If we put it on the word cardio, we get cardiac, which means pertaining to the heart. Just another thing to note, by the way, before we go any further, all of these suffixes start with a vowel, except for one. So 13 out of 14 of these are going to start with vowels, which means your word building rules are going to apply. And in this case, since they all start with a vowel, you will never need to use a combining form with a suffix, with a pertaining to suffix, except in very rare situations. And we won't even cover those in this semester. So once again, ac, it means pertaining to. If we attach it to cardiac, it means pertaining to the heart. Al, if we attach to latero, which means the side, it gives us the word lateral, meaning pertaining to the side. R is kind of the pirate suffix, if you will. R, we attach it to lumbo, we have pertaining to the lower back. Ari, when attached to pulmono, means pertaining to the lung. Pulmonary is the word. If we want to describe the cornea, we have the corno as our combining form. We put eel on the end of it, and we have corneal, pertaining to the cornea. Iliac is derived from taking the word ilio and attaching iac to the end of it, and we have pertaining to the ilium. Gastric, you've seen gastro already, so you know that's the combining form. You see there's no O there. We threw it away because the suffix ic starts with its own vowel, so we have gastric, pertaining to the stomach. So there's your first 7. These kind of are specific. You would never use the word cardial or cardiar or cardiary or cardial. So the words that these suffixes are associated with are very much paired with them for the most part. Ac could be used for other words, but when we do a pertaining to word of the heart, it's always going to be ac. You may see ac attached to a different word, it still means pertaining to. So it's not that these suffixes are only used with these words, but primarily these are the words you'll see them attached to, okay? Just so you don't confuse them. You will learn as you go that these attach to certain words, and trust me, you will get this. I know it's confusing, you will get it. Our other 7 adjective suffixes, eel, if we attach that to the word penis, we have penile, which means pertaining to the penis. If we want to describe something in the uterus, let's say uterine cancer, that's a common type of cancer. We would take utero, which is the combining form for uterus, we put "ine" on the end of it, and now we have uterine, pertaining to the uterus. Eor. Eor is that's our third one from the top. Eor is a very particular one. Eor shows up in places where Eor should not show up. Happens to be my favorite Winnie the Pooh character as well, but that's a whole other thing. So Eor, and you're going to find out in chapter 2, shows up in places that he shouldn't be. Do not let Eor be where he shouldn't be. He'll give you a wrong answer. For our purposes here, we're attaching Eor to antero. Antero means front, and Eor means pertaining to the front. Later on in chapter 2, you'll learn a word which it has its combining form postero. It also has E-or on the end of it. And if you attach those, you have posterior, which would be pertaining to the back. That's just a side note to show you that these suffixes will be used on other words. They are sort of specific, but there's a little wiggle room there. If we take the word audito, which means hearing, and we put ori on the end of it, we come up with auditory, meaning pertaining to hearing. If we take the word adipo, or the combining form adipo rather, which means fat, and we take the O away and we attach O's to it, we come up with adipose. This means pertaining to fat. Ois is the only way I can pronounce that without having a word attached to it. We're attaching that to the combining form cutano, which means skin. So we come up with cutaneous, which means pertaining to the skin. And the one exception at the bottom here, it does not start with a vowel. It starts with a consonant. And you'll notice in the word, there is no combining vowel. So there's our first deviation from the rules. Because I always said if it starts with a consonant, right, you need to have the combining vowel to attach a suffix. Well, optic is a perfect example of how we break that rule but still have a usable word. So optic means pertaining to the eye. So tick's always obviously going to start with a consonant, and it will never need the combining vowel. Confusing, right? Just suffice it to say, this one example is probably the only time you're going to encounter that during this class. Just be aware that the rules, although I say they're hard and fast and it's always, they're not always. We have some flexibility. It's just for now, I want you to think they're always that way so that you learn them that way. So those are your 14 adjective suffixes. Every suffix in that left column means pertaining to, and that's how they modify each word. Once again, questions, email me, or bring it up when we do our Zoom meeting. I'm happy to clarify. Now, we're going into another list that looks very similar to our prefix, but these are their suffixes. This is a long data dump, ladies and gentlemen, and my sincerest apologies. This is the last time I will do this to you this semester, where I'm just going to give you this amount of words and ask you to memorize them. The suffixes are very important, so you do need to work on memorization on these. I suggest flashcards and repetition. That would be the best way to get it. And the reason you have to put in that, 4 to 6 hours a day the first few weeks of our class is in order to get all this in your active memory. Once you have all your prefixes and suffixes, I'll be teaching you nothing more than combining forms for body parts and procedures, and you'll be attaching prefixes and suffixes to them. Once you have these things memorized, you will have, I'd say, 40% of your work in this class already completed, and that's just in week 1. So it's a big week. Put a lot of work into it. It will pay off, I promise you. And if you don't get them all now, you will have them all by the end of the semester. Okay. So, suffixes. Acousis means hearing. I'm a guitar player as well and a musician, so acousis, I think of acoustic guitar, hearing. Ad means toward. Now, you may recognize that. That was also a prefix, and the hyphen was on the other end, and it still meant toward. So, can a prefix be a suffix? Yes. Can a suffix be a prefix? Yes. You will see examples of that. 2 words in a row that may have the same meaning. Algia, algesia. Each of them mean pain. Arche means beginning. This is not a suffix you're going to see often. You'll see it in one chapter. Asthenia means weakness. That's also a word you're going to see in probably 1, maybe 2 chapters. Blast, which means an immature or embryonic cell. So if you study biology, you may know that already. You'll see that from time to time. Cardia means heart condition. Now let's take a look at that word for a second. I've been telling you all along that cardio means heart, right? And this is almost the word cardia, but it has the IA at the end of it. And you're going to find out later that IA is its own suffix, meaning condition. So here, IA is attached to a word root, and it means heart condition. So the takeaway on this is, or the question I guess I would ask, can a word root, in other words, a combining form, be morphed into a suffix? The answer is yes, and there's the proof right there. Cardia, heart condition. So the word root's been taken, a suffix has been added to it to make it a compound suffix, which means heart condition. As an example, tachycardia, you learn tachy as prefixes, meaning fast. Tachycardia is a fast heartbeat, a condition of a fast heartbeat. And seal means hernia, which is something pushing through a muscle wall that shouldn't be pushing through a muscle wall. Very important here on centesis. It's a surgical puncture to remove fluid. If you give me the definition for centesis and you say anything other than surgical in the first word, it's going to be wrong. There is a difference between a puncture and a surgical puncture. If I give you a flu shot, I've given you a puncture, but it wasn't surgical. It was aseptic. So a centesis is a surgical puncture. It means you're inserting a needle or a device into a body cavity, and that needs to have absolute sterility so that we don't cause infection. So centesis always means surgical puncture. Very important to remember. Schizia means defecation, elimination of waste. Side, as in homicide or suicide, is to kill. Dark words, but appropriate meanings. Klasia means to break. And if you look, it's closely related to the word clast, which is something that breaks. So they're kind of interrelated. Creen means to secrete. Siesis means pregnancy. And site is our suffix for cell. Now, site can also be a combining form, cyto, and it also means cell. So you see, there's kind of a lot of fluidity, a lot of wiggle room with some of these, and we can work with them that way. And understand that if you're seeing these words pop up as a prefix and as a suffix and as a combining form, it's all true. They can all be used that way. Not all of the words, but some of them. So just be aware of that. It is accurate information. I can see right now my time is running low for this particular segment, so I'm going to end it here and come back with another segment, and we'll finish off all the suffixes at that point. Once again, I'm giving you lots of detail on suffixes because they are so critical to getting the understanding of the words together. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it right now. If I were going to advise you which to work harder on, suffixes or prefixes, I would probably say for this part of the course, focus on the suffixes first, because every word's going to have them, and you won't understand the words without them. Prefixes tend to come a little bit faster. They're not used as often, and sometimes they're easier to grasp. So really, suffixes might be a really good thing to concentrate on right now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. I'll be back with you in a second with some more suffixes.